Hey folks, welcome back to Tent Outdoors. My name is Alan from Season 10 of Alone. Today's a bit of a special day because exactly a year ago today, Wyatt and I were getting on a plane from camp. We just finished our refeeding process and we're heading to Saskatoon, Saskatchewan to enjoy Hawaiian pizza, chicken wings, ice cold IPA. And the second night we were there, we went to an all-you-can-eat Chinese food buffet. That one didn't go so well for me because I went a little crazy on the soft ice cream machine in the back. And beside that soft ice cream machine was a little mini fridge full of giant chocolate brownies. And I kind of went to town. I shouldn't have gone back for seconds, but so I didn't feel too good after that, but I survived. So today's video, I'm going to talk about the gear that I selected, the clothing gear, not my 10 items, that kind of got me through that last 16 days or so after the weather turned really cold, snowy, and miserable. And, you know, my selections, some were good, some were okay, and some were all out terrible. So I'm going to go through each one and kind of give you my feedback on them and how they work for me. So stick around, we're starting right now. So I've got all my gear laid out beside me on the log here, all my clothing items. So first of all, we have my underpants, and you're only allowed 2 pairs. Why you're only allowed 2 pairs, I'm not sure, but they're both merino wool and they're both icebreaker. And they were great. They're comfortable and reasonably thin. And I got a lot of questions. Why did you choose yellow? I chose yellow because it was the only pair on the website available in extra large. That's why I chose yellow, okay? Now those yellow underpants are no longer with me because a mouse got into them, kind of made a nest. It like defecated in them and urinated in them and chewed a few holes in them. So I burnt them in my fire. So this is the one pair that I have left. And interesting note on underpants, once it got colder, I actually stopped wearing them because I was wearing 2 pairs of long johns and my pants over top with my shell over top of those. So I found that wearing your underpants with 2 pairs of long johns was a little restrictive, if you know what I'm saying. So I actually just stopped wearing them as soon as it got cold. That might be TMI, but oh well. Now for my long johns, you're allowed 2 sets of long johns, including tops. So I went with 250 weight merino wool. So as much of the clothing that I could choose as merino wool, I did. So it was almost all my gear was made out of wool. And these were 250 weight icebreaker and smart wool. And they were just so comfortable. These are definitely a thumbs up. And I loved having them and I wore them pretty much all the time. Now for my tops, this was one of my favorite items. It was so soft and comfortable. I loved putting it on, and I basically wore it the entire time, except at the beginning when it was warm. This is also a 250 weight smart wool, and like I said, I really, really enjoyed it. So you're only allowed 1 t-shirt, and I went with the smart wool t-shirt, and I don't think it ever came off my body. Thumbs up for sure on that. And for my last long john top, this is actually a Lululemon sweater that I had before the show. It's a fairly heavy, tightly knit merino wool sweater. And I was a little bit surprised that it passed the inspection as a long underwear top, but it did, and I was really thankful to have this. So definite thumbs up on this heavy merino wool long john upper. So next we're on to pants. You're allowed 2 pairs of pants. And my first pair that I chose were these Sitka mountain pants, and they were awesome. I loved them. Here's why. You got the waterproof butt pad and waterproof knee pads, which were super handy because you're always down on one knee, lighting fires, cleaning fish, whatever, cutting wood. And they also had a knee pad here. And you know, I ain't no spring chicken anymore, so it felt really good on my knees whenever I was kneeling to have this thick foam pad. And when I didn't wear these, when I chose to wear my other pants, I really missed them. So these were a definite thumbs up, and I'd highly recommend these pants. One of my favorite items for sure. My second pair of pants were some wool bibs. These are Big Bills, pure wool, very warm. I didn't wear them that much. Near the end when it was super cold, I wore pretty much everything, but I just like my knee pads so much, and the waterproof butt and the waterproof knees. But these were also a good selection. You can see they don't look that worn, but I did wear them a reasonable amount. But I definitely wore my Sitka pants a lot more. But wool Big Bill pants, bibs, nice to have when it got cold. So I'll talk about my outerwear. You're allowed one waterproof shell. I went with First Light, and it's just a very thin waterproof shell. Now, I sweat a reasonable amount, and I've had rain gear before, and when you're moving around, and I really don't like the fact that they don't breathe. And when you have waterproof shells from a high quality company like this, I mean, you stay dry and you don't sweat in it. It breathes really well. It also made a really good door to my smoker. If you remember that, I used to pin this over the door of my smoker to keep as much smoke as I could inside. But this was also a good choice. I wore it when it was snowing and when it was raining, and just as that a little extra layer of warmth. So definite thumbs up on this shell. So my friend worked in the Arctic, and he had this jacket. It's a Canada Goose Expedition. And he goes, you can try it on. So literally a day or two before I was leaving, he brought it over and I tried it on, and it fit me perfectly. And I could tell that it was just so warm, and it weighed like 1,000 pounds. And it was just one of my items that I think helped push me through till the end, through those really cold times. I didn't wear it that much until the last 16 days, but it was extremely warm. Another thing I liked about it was this hood. It has wire, and you can bend it around your face. I remember using it when I was ice fishing, and that wire in the hood that you could bend over and just keep all the wind out and all the bits of snow, it was incredible. And I also like how it seals your hand here. And there's also a waistband that you can crank up really tightly, like a Velcro cinch, to prevent any cold air from coming up from your waist. So double thumbs up for this jacket. Very expensive. I think it's 1,800 bucks Canadian for this, so that's like almost 2/3 of the money that we're allocated to buy gear. But luckily my neighbor just lent it to me. I gave it back to him, and I borrowed it back to film this video, so I got to give it back to him when I get back. But just an incredible jacket, highly recommended. You're allowed 2 hats. This was actually my father-in-law's, gave it to me years ago, just a rabbit skin hat, and it was extremely warm. Once you put it on, you could instantly feel your head heating up. And I also rolled it up at night, and I used this as my pillow. Now my second hat was just this toque, and you can see there's a hole here as well from a mouse chewing it. I shouldn't even notice that till now, but I wore this pretty much all the time. It's a double layer merino wool toque, and it was awesome. It was warm enough, it was comfortable, it was soft, and it was just awesome. Thumbs up on the merino wool toque. You're also allowed 2 like neck warmers. I call them ski tubes. And they were awesome to have as well, because I remember it's the first thing I put on in the morning to keep kind of the neck and chin warm. And again, they were both merino wool and both awesome, both thumbs up. So on to socks. You're allowed 6 pairs of socks. They're all merino wool socks, and I brought a variety of thicknesses from thick to medium all the way down to quite light for early in the game, knowing that you could layer them, and your feet are actually warmer when you're wearing layers of thinner socks as compared to like 1 layer of thick socks. So it didn't matter how many pairs of socks I wore, my feet had a hard time staying warm. Even with high quality winter boots that I had, my toes were pretty much always cold. Yeah, I had no feeling in my toes for many months afterwards. And actually the tips of my big toes are still a little bit numb a year later. So there was a little bit of nerve damage in the end of my toes, but for the most part, it was okay. So merino wool, thumbs up for sure. Right, so we're allowed 2 sweaters, and both my sweaters were again made out of wool. Now this one's kind of special to me because my wife knit it for me in the late 90s when I was teaching up in Fort Nelson. Unfortunately, Scotty the mouse got a hold of it and did some serious damage here, that little yeah, mice were definitely an issue. They put holes in quite a bit of my gear, but thumbs up on the wool sweater. My second sweater was a sweater made by LL Bean. Now they make really good stuff, and this sweater was noticeably very warm and good quality. I wore this pretty much all the time as well, and it is lamb's wool. Yeah, 100% merino lamb's wool, and super thumbs up for this. I'm very glad that I bought this. It's very expensive, but it was noticeably warm. Now this actually counted as a button-up heavy shirt. This again is made by LL Bean. I kind of used it as a jacket instead of a shirt, but Near the end, it did actually become my shirt. But this is a wool jacket made by LL Bean, and loved it. I wore it all the time. So for pants, you're also allowed one pair, like a shell pant, like a waterproof pair of pants, and this is kind of where I made one of my mistakes. In past shows, people have got a really heavy, plasticky, waterproof, almost like a type of pants that you wear on a fishing boat, but I knew that my body didn't like those. For one, they're hard to move around in, your knees get stuck when you're trying to bend, and I wanted something that breathed. And I think I went a little too light because they didn't really hold up. I got some holes in them, but they did the job. But I wouldn't buy these ones again. But they did breathe nicely, and they kind of did the job. But other contestants brought a much heavier type of snow pant, a waterproof, like an insulated pair, and I probably would have done that almost like a snowmobile pant. Some people had, so I probably would have gone with that instead. So we're allowed 3 pairs of gloves. I've only got 2 because I was so disappointed with my main pair of winter gloves that I gave them away to my son as his ski gloves when he got back. Now, they were outdoor research, and there's nothing wrong with the gloves, but for my use out there, and I talked about this in another one of my videos, things I would have done differently. I'll put the link of that one in my description as well. You're always taking your gloves on and off to operate the camera, to tie a fishing line, to light a fire. So my gloves are always on and off. And these gloves, even though they were warm and they came up pretty high, they were the fingers inside were individual. So whenever I took my glove off, they became inside out, and they took a long time to put back together. And my hands got cold really quickly. So that was one of my biggest mistakes, not having a usable pair of warm gloves. If you look at Wyatt's gloves, I needed like a giant oven mitt style of gloves where you could just plunk in, super warm, plunk out without having to mess around with liners and stuff like that. So I wish that I brought a giant pair of easy on, easy off gloves. So these gloves are the gloves I wore pretty much 99% of the time. These were my work gloves. They're made by Hestra. They're very expensive, and they came with a wool liner. And you're not allowed to have, your work gloves aren't allowed to have a removable liner, so I just glued them in and they passed the inspection. But these are easy on and off, so I ended up wearing them all the time at a price because my hands were always cold. And did they hold up? Well, I was pretty hard on them and I wore them all the time, but they did both come apart at the fingers, but they lasted and they were good. I was quite happy with them, so I'm going to give them one of those. Now, watching other contestants' videos, they really recommended these, and they were okay. I wore them when it was wet and when it was chopping a hole through the ice because there was a lot of water coming up, but I wasn't wild about them. And I also wore them at the beginning when I was cleaning fish because I was pretty paranoid about smelling like fish in my open tarp. You know, I had visions of, you know, waking up to a big black bear licking my hands as I was sleeping. It didn't happen, but so I wore these to try to prevent the smell of the fish on my body. But after a couple weeks, I just didn't care anymore, and because everything smelled like fish. So these were okay. I give these kind of one of these. They didn't have a lot of warmth, and yeah, I wore my work gloves instead, but these are okay. Now, gaiters. Everyone's allowed a pair of gaiters, and these were great early on. I put them on in the morning because a lot of people don't realize that when you have gaiters on, they actually help keep you quite warm. They help your toes stay warm. But I wore them in the mornings when there was a heavy dew and I was walking around camp to prevent my pants from getting wet. But the problem with these gaiters, and this was my bad. When it got cold and I was wearing my winter boots, my gaiters weren't big enough to fit around. And you'd think I would have checked that, but I didn't. So that was a kind of a dumb move on my part. So these gaiters, as soon as it got cold and I moved into my winter boots, these just sat in my shelter, and I couldn't think of anything else I could utilize them for. And these are outdoor research, and they worked really well in the early season. Now for boots, you're allowed 2 pairs of boots. And I'm going to talk about my choices. So my first pair of boots were these. They're a company called Mendel, and they're just a high ankle leather hunting boot with like a Gore-Tex sock inside. It's part of the boot. It doesn't come out. Maybe sock's the wrong word, like Gore-Tex liner. And they kept my feet completely dry. They're fairly warm and they're very, very comfortable. Good grip. I wasn't slipping much. Really good on the rocks and the moss. I was happy with them except for one thing. Now, if you look on the boot here, there's a heavy plastic called a rand. And the rand actually delaminated on both boots, but it didn't cause water to come in. So they maintained their ability to be waterproof, but mud and dirt and sticks and stuff got in there. So I was pretty upset that they came undone. I don't know if it was just a little defect in this particular boot, but I did call Mindell when I got back and they did take care of it. They wouldn't replace them, but I sent them in and they glued them back down. And they look brand new again when they sent them back. And I haven't worn them too much since the show, so I'm hoping that they will stay laminated. So my heavy winter boot I chose were these Baffin boots. I don't remember the exact model they're called, but I was really happy with these boots. They're easy to put on. It's got a removable liner so you could dry them if they became wet. And they were warm and they were comfortable, but they were just so massive. These are size 14s, but I'm a size 13, but I read online they size a little small, and they did, but I was very happy with these. They stayed waterproof. And like I said before, my feet were always cold, but I think I could have bought any boot, like the warmest boots in the world, and my feet still would have got a little bit cold. So I didn't get any frostbite or anything like that to my feet. So they did do the job, and I was happy with these boots. I give these boots a definite thumbs up. If you have any additional questions about the gear that I went over today, or if I missed something, please ask a question in my comments. I'll be sure to answer it. And if you are enjoying my videos, please consider subscribing to my channel. That would be great. Guys, thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. My name is Alan. This is Tent Outdoors. We'll see you next time.